Hello everybody, welcome back to the Tranquita Studios. This is Jordan, and today is going to be a bit of a longer weather forecast as we have a potential for some significant and widespread severe weather today, and the potential for some severe weather over the next week, as well as this potential for some flash flooding across much of the northern and eastern United States. And we also have a potential for multiple tropical storms to form in the northern Atlantic and central and eastern Pacific Oceans in the coming week. And we also have multiple systems active in the western Pacific Ocean right now. So anyways, let's get straight into today's video. So here is the day 1 convective outlook for the severe weather today. We have a newly added enhanced risk of severe weather across southern Minnesota and east central South Dakota. Our tornado risk for today is elevated. We have a 5% tornado risk from extreme northwestern Wisconsin through central Minnesota all the way into parts of northeastern South Dakota, where you could see a few tornadoes today. And we did just see a tornado about 30 minutes to an hour ago in about 5% tornado risk in western Minnesota, and we are expecting the potential for a couple more tornadoes later today, and I wouldn't rule out a strong one in the 5% tornado risk, especially in the southern part of that, where we will have a more discrete mode of severe weather. Here's our wind risk for today. 30% wind risk. Oh. What happened? Alright, 30% wind risk. Across southern Minnesota and a sliver of northeastern South Dakota, where we could see some widespread damage. Wind gusts today up to 70 miles an hour, and an isolated one could potentially reach 75 to 80 miles an hour, although that is not likely according to the Storm Prediction Center. However, we have a 15% wind risk from northeastern Minnesota and western part of the upper peninsula of Michigan through southern Minnesota and eastern South Dakota, and then a small 15% wind risk across eastern Virginia into parts of Maryland and Washington, D.C. Our hail risk for today. We have a 15% hatch hail risk across northeastern South Dakota and south central Minnesota, and then the 15% hail risk extends all the way to extreme northwestern Wisconsin and northeastern and east central Minnesota, and then our 5% hail risk extends from eastern and central Montana through southeastern and eastern South Dakota. Looking at our day 2 outlook, we have a large slight risk of severe weather from southern and central Montana through much of South Dakota, through southern Minnesota and southwestern Wisconsin. Our tornado risk for tomorrow is pretty low, although we could see a tornado or two across eastern South Dakota and southern Minnesota, and I wouldn't be surprised if I do about a 5% tornado risk tomorrow. Here's our wind risk. We have a 15% hatch wind risk across eastern South Dakota and southern Minnesota, and then our 15% wind risk extends across most of eastern and central South Dakota into northern Iowa, much of southern Minnesota, and southwestern Wisconsin. We could see some hurricane-force wind gusts tomorrow, and there is the small chance we could see a derecho tomorrow, although I wouldn't be too confident in one happening. And then our hail risk for tomorrow was pretty low, although we do have a 15% hail risk from southeastern and central Montana through much of South Dakota, where you could see some scattered rain up to ping pong ball size tomorrow. Or golf ball size, I mean. Even our day 3 outlook, we have a large marginal risk from southeastern Montana through Nebraska in Iowa through southern Wisconsin and northern Illinois. And here's your risk area. And we could see a 15% risk add in later outlooks. I think they discussed adding higher probabilities if there's more confident, more widespread severe weather for Tuesday. And here's the day 4 rate. All of them are predictability too low, which means we will likely see, or could see, at least outlooks and future updates, but it doesn't look like we're going to see anything until day 3 for these, just based on previous trends. And it doesn't look like we're going to see anything super significant, although that could change in the coming days. Next, let's look at our excessive rainfall outlooks. We have a slight risk of excessive rainfall across northeastern Minnesota and extreme northwestern Wisconsin today, as well as another slight risk of flash flooding from east central Missouri through much of northern West Virginia and southwestern Pennsylvania, and then another slight risk of flash flooding from south central New York through eastern Pennsylvania, western New Jersey, northern and central Delaware, and eastern Maryland. We could see some scattered flash flooding in those areas, but it doesn't look like anything significant. And then we have a marginal risk of flash flooding across southeastern Arizona and much of New Mexico, which we've seen that in the past few days, really. Tomorrow, we have a slight risk of flash flooding from southeastern South Dakota, northern Iowa, and southern Minnesota, where you can see some scattered flash flooding tomorrow. Maybe some at risk to see some significant flash flooding, and I wouldn't be surprised if they had a small, moderate risk of flash flooding tomorrow. Then we have another marginal risk of flash flooding for southeastern Arizona, much of New Mexico, and into central Colorado. Even our day 3 excessive rainfall outlook, we have a slight risk of excessive rainfall from northeastern Wyoming through southwestern South Dakota and northern Nebraska. And then we have a marginal risk of flash flooding across parts of the southeastern United States, mainly Georgia, southern Alabama, and northern Florida. Next, looking at the National Hurricane Center, nothing in the Atlantic as of now, although we could see some development in later this week into early next week with a tropical wave that will move off of the coast of Africa, and that could become a brief-lived tropical depression or even tropical storm, which I'll show you in the models in a few minutes. Then here's the central or the eastern Pacific Ocean. We have this area of interest, which has a 60% chance of formation in 7 days, and it looks like this will form, and it could be significant. Then here's our other area of interest, 30% chance of the next 30 hours, 30% chance of 7 days. This will likely go up later in the day or early tomorrow. And we could see this develop into a brief-lived tropical system, maybe a tropical storm. And then we have 1C. Here's the path of that. It's expected to become a decent tropical storm. Right now is a 35-mile-an-hour tropical depression with a pressure of, I think, 1,008 millibars. And it's going to pass well south of Hawaii, while intensifying to 60 miles an hour before gradually weakening to a tropical depression and dissipating as it moves well to the southwest of Hawaii. Let's just look at the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. We have Tropical Storm Kome, which reformed here And we have Typhoon Kroza. Here's Kroza. You can see the future path has gone down some in intensity. We're no longer expecting a significant typhoon, although this could still be a low-end typhoon later in the week. But right now it seems to it's at its peak right now at 70 knots or 80 miles an hour. But this isn't really going to affect any land at all. There's really no land it's going to affect, over maybe some light rainfall on a couple islands to the south of Japan. But it doesn't really look like much as of now. And then here's Kome. You can see this is expected to make landfall at 55 knots or 65 miles an hour. And this is going to be a tropical storm as it passes near Shanghai, and it's going to bring some tropical storm force winds to Shanghai. So if you're in Shanghai, I would prepare now. Obviously, it's not going to be at peak intensity, but it's still going to bring tropical storm force winds for an extended period of time. Potentially like over 12 hours of tropical storm force winds and heavy rainfall. So you need to be prepared for not really strong wind gusts, but the flash flooding that could occur. We could see some catastrophic flooding near Shanghai and parts of southeastern China. And there's a chance that the system does curve out back into the water instead of dissipating, and it could go towards South Korea and bring some impacts there as a tropical storm. And we really have no areas of interest now because 91W has been absorbed into Kame, I believe, and it is no longer has any chance of forming. Now let's look at our satellite view. Here's Tropical Depression 1. You can see it's looking decent. It doesn't have a lot of convection, but it does have some decent convection near the center, and it is a relatively small system. Here's Kroza, which is at 70 knots. You can see it does look decent on satellite, and you can see maybe the start of an eye there on satellite forming. Here's Kome, which is at 40 knots, and you can see it's not moving much really, it's just developing there. And this could lead to some significant flooding on those islands there. And it is actually pretty much stalling over some islands right now. So that's likely bring some strong winds and heavy rainfall to those areas. And Francisco is over. There's basically just some cloud cover associated with its remnants. And this is probably going to get absorbed into Kome or just completely dissipate very soon. Here's the forecast models. First we'll look at the HWRF. This is the HWRF for 1C. You can see here that it has it becoming a tropical storm soon, and it has actually becoming a decent hurricane. And this actually has it approaching the international date line as a tropical storm. So that'd be interesting to see, but you can see it falls apart quickly once it gets really far west. Which that would be good. This isn't going to really have any land impact. Next, let's look at Kroza. And this actually has it becoming a near major typhoon there. It actually could become a major typhoon according to the HWRF, which I doubt that will happen, but it could still be stronger than the official forecasts are calling for. And finally, here's Kome. This actually has it becoming a typhoon here, and it has it bringing some significant winds to parts of China. And then it actually has it moving out to sea as a typhoon. So that'll be interesting to see, but I think this is underestimating the land impacts of this system. I don't think it really understands how the land will impact it, but there is some water even in the land, so that could prevent it from weakening as rapidly. Here's the HMON for 1C. You can see it has it becoming a hurricane, and it pretty much dies out as it moves west. Although there is another system up there, I'm not sure if it's tropical, but that'll be hurricane force. So that could be a hurricane randomly, according to this model. I don't think that'll happen, but that'd be interesting to see. Now let's look at the HAFSA. Here's 1C. How's it becoming a hurricane? A high category 2 hurricane before it really alright, so it just has it teleporting. I guess we have teleporting hurricanes now on the models, and it still has it going near the international date line, which is quite interesting. Now we'll look at Croza. Oh. So that has it, right now, according to the small, it's already almost a major typhoon, and it has it becoming a category 4 typhoon within like 6 or 12 hours, and then it has it staying a major typhoon or close to that intensity for a very long time. I think that might be a little bit of an overestimation. But here's Kome, and this has it becoming a typhoon, and this has it just stalling near land, and it does a loop, and it has a lot of wind area, and then it just loses it all, and then it gains some of it back as it weakens, and then it strengthens. Weather models are so weird. Here's the HAFSB, which only has 1C. It also has it becoming a major hurricane, in fact, before it rapidly weakens there, and by the time it's at like 175 W for west, 175 west, it's basically gone. Now, let's look at the GFS. Here's 1C. This has it becoming a hurricane too, so all the hurricane models support it becoming a hurricane, but the National Hurricane Center doesn't have it becoming anything stronger than 60 miles an hour. So I wonder if they'll change their forecast. Here's Croza. The GFS wants it to randomly switch between like 70 miles an hour and like 80 miles an hour and 120 miles an hour within like 6 hours. So that's probably not correct, but yeah, I guess. And this is the first model that does not have Kome becoming a typhoon. It just has it dying over land, like the official forecast. And then here's the ECMWF. Here's 1C. This is like the only model that doesn't have it becoming a hurricane, but also the Euro likes to underestimate things. so I wouldn't go by its word too much. Here's Croza. This still wants it to become like 80 knots or 90 miles an hour. This wants it to stay typhoon for a long time, which is interesting. This actually is stronger than the forecast. I haven't seen something like that for a while in the ECMWF, but that could happen. And then here's Kome. So it randomly goes from like 55 knots to 45 knots in like 12 hours. But then it gains strength over land, and then it dissipates and does a loop. Now we're going to look at the ocean analysis of tropical tidbits. Here's the sea surface temperatures. You can see where all those systems are in the Western Pacific. Pretty decent environment, just considering the water temperatures. Then where those systems are in the Eastern and Central Pacific, also decent sea surface temperatures. In the Atlantic, the Gulf, the Caribbean, the Western Atlantic, and the main development region all have decent sea surface temperatures, and even parts of the Indian Ocean have decent sea surface temperatures. Now we're going to look at, here's if we're above or below average. So in parts of the Eastern Central Pacific, we're below average or near normal. But in much of the Atlantic, we're above average. The Western Pacific, a lot of it's above average, except near Japan. Well, south of Japan, because near Japan it's boiling hot essentially for them, because it's like 4 degrees above average near Japan and areas further east. Here's the El Nino index. So right now it's looks like it's gonna become a La Nina, or it already is. It's on a rapidly declining trend. You can see for a while it was actually going gradually up, and now it's rapidly going down. So this could be a sign of a more active Atlantic hurricane season and a less active Pacific hurricane season in the near future this season. So that'll be interesting to see. Anyways, that's all I have for today's video. Some severe weather is possible over the next week, as well as the potential for some flash flooding over the next few days. We could have a few tropical storms develop over the next week in the northern Atlantic and central and eastern Pacific Oceans. And we have a couple systems to worry about in the western Pacific Ocean. Goodbye.